cayenne pepper is a remarkable herb. Cayenne pepper will thin the blood. Cayenne pepper will rebuild heart muscle. Cayenne pepper will strengthen the arterial walls. Cayenne pepper is a blood stimulant, and anything that stimulates blood stimulates healing. In fact, it has been said that you put cayenne pepper with any other herb and you will increase its effectiveness.
Right now, millions of people are stuck in a loop of pills, tests and checkups, while the real problem for many sits quietly on their kitchen shelf. I'm talking about something far simpler: spices. Listen, when your arteries are under stress, they need steady support, healthy blood pressure, smooth blood flow, reduced inflammation and balanced cholesterol. The wrong foods and habits put extra strain on the system. But certain spices work differently. They target key pathways, helping vessels relax, improving flow and reducing strain over time. Real people have seen measurable changes by adding a handful of these ancient spices into meals or supplements. We're not promising instant miracles, and we're not selling a magic cure. But you can make real gains: steadier blood pressure, better circulation, less plaque buildup, and healthier arteries that keep blood flowing freely. In this video, we're counting down the top 5 ancient spices that support arterial health, ranked from number 1 to number 4. I'll explain exactly how each spice works, how to use it effectively, and the kind of results you can expect over time. Share in the comments where you're watching from and which spice you already use. Your tip could inspire someone to make a change today. Number 1, garlic. Start with 1 raw clove. Crush it. The smell hits you. That smell is part of why garlic works. The active compound that forms when you crush garlic is called allicin. Allicin is unstable and short-lived, but its effects on blood vessels and circulation have been studied for decades. When people take concentrated garlic supplements or eat generous amounts of fresh garlic over weeks, measurable changes show up in blood pressure, cholesterol, and measures doctors use for artery health. One pooled analysis of multiple trials found average drops in systolic blood pressure around 6 to 8 millimeters of mercury and diastolic drops around 4 to 5 millimeters of mercury in people with high blood pressure. Another review focused on aged garlic preparations reported similar reductions, numbers that are on par with a mild blood pressure pill for some patients. How does that translate to day-to-day life? A sustained drop of 6 to 8 millimeters of mercury in systolic pressure is not trivial. Public health data show that changes of that size can lower the risk of a major cardiovascular event, a heart attack or stroke, by double-digit percentages over years. Practically, adding garlic into the routine can be a low-cost, low-tech measure that nudges your risk profile in the right direction when combined with diet, weight control, and exercise. Some clinics in cities like London and Boston report patients who've used aged garlic supplements alongside medication and lifestyle work, showing improvements in measured artery stiffness and flow tests. Those are the same kinds of tests vascular clinics use to track improvement after lifestyle changes. Mechanisms matter. Garlic seems to boost the production or availability of nitric oxide, the gas your body uses to tell arteries to relax. It also reduces platelet stickiness, helps lower LDL cholesterol a bit, and reduces inflammatory signals in the blood. In short, garlic is not a single target herb. It nudges several pathways that contribute to tighter, clogged or stiff arteries. Over months, that combined effect can show up as better circulation and lower measured arterial pressure. If you picture a pipe with some scaling, garlic doesn't instantly wash the scale away, but it helps slow the process, relax the pipe, and reduce the pressure inside. Dose and form are important. Trials vary. Fresh garlic, extracts, and aged garlic supplements all appear in the literature. Aged garlic extract, an odor-reduced supplement, was used in many of the controlled trials that reported the stronger blood pressure effects. Doses in studies ranged from a few hundred milligrams of aged garlic extract per day up to a couple of grams depending on the product. If you prefer food, 1 to 2 cloves of raw or lightly cooked garlic daily will deliver biologically active compounds, though the exact allicin yield is lower and more variable than in standardized supplements. If you take blood pressure medications, statins, or blood thinners like warfarin, mention garlic to your doctor before starting a high-dose supplement. Garlic can boost anticoagulant effects in some people. If you want to use garlic in a practical plan, think simple. Add crushed garlic to dressings, marinades, and stir-fries. Let crushed garlic sit 5 to 10 minutes before cooking. That short wait lets allicin form. If you want predictable doses, pick a reputable aged garlic product with clear labeling and follow the used dosages from the trials. Many people report mild heartburn, body odor, or loose stool if they eat a lot of raw garlic. Those are common and usually pass. For most adults, moderate dietary intake is safe. For anyone on prescription anticoagulants or preparing for surgery, talk to the clinician first. Number 2, turmeric curcumin. Turmeric is the orange root used in South Asia for food and for healing. The component most discussed is curcumin. Curcumin is not easy for the body to absorb, which is why formulas that include black pepper extract or special delivery systems show up in research. When curcumin gets into the bloodstream at effective levels, it interacts with the cells that line arteries, the endothelial cells, and reduces the kinds of inflammation that make arteries stiff. One intervention study in healthy middle-aged adults showed measurable improvements in resistance artery endothelial function after 12 weeks of curcumin supplementation. Other reviews summarized trials showing improved vessel responsiveness and modest blood pressure effects when curcumin is taken in appropriate doses. Put plainly, curcumin helps the inner lining of the artery work better. A healthy lining secretes nitric oxide and keeps platelets from clumping. When the lining works poorly, arteries constrict and plaque progresses. Curcumin blocks a set of inflammatory signals and scavengers, damaging molecules that would otherwise injure the lining. In trials where researchers tracked flow-mediated dilation or other vascular tests, people taking curcumin did better than those on placebo. Those improvements are the functional measures doctors use to say that an artery's relaxation ability has improved. In controlled trials, people who took curcumin regularly for several weeks experienced improved endothelial function and small drops in systolic pressure in some studies. Exact numbers vary by dose and formulation, but randomized trials typically ran for 8 to 12 weeks and reported statistically significant improvements on the vascular tests. If you want a short mental model, the improvement in a measure like flow-mediated dilation that you can see after curcumin is similar to the kind of change that regular aerobic exercise produces over a similar period in some study groups. That's not the same as saying curcumin replaces exercise. It's to show the scale of effect seen in trials. Practical use matters. Curcumin absorption improves when taken with piperine, black pepper extract, or in a specialized formulation that increases bioavailability. Typical extract doses in trials ranged widely. Many used several hundred milligrams of curcumin daily in a bioavailable form. In kitchens, people combine turmeric and black pepper in curries and soups. The traditional pairing has a practical pharmacology behind it. If you consider a supplement, follow the tested dose on the product label and look for transparency about curcumin content and whether black pepper or another absorption enhancer is included. Avoid mega doses without medical supervision. Safety and interactions deserve a short, plain note. Curcumin can interact with blood thinners and can alter how the liver processes some medications. People with gallbladder disease should be cautious. Side effects in trials are usually mild, digestive upset, loose stools. But if you are on prescription drugs, check with your clinician. For those with inflammation-related vascular problems, curcumin taken consistently with a clear formulation can be a practical tool to improve endothelial function and, over time, reduce arterial strain. That measure of improved endothelial function is the same kind of metric clinicians look for when they test whether a therapy is helping the artery lining work better. Number 3, ginger. Ginger has been on kitchen tables and in medicine chests for centuries. The active compounds, gingerols and shogols, act on pathways that relax blood vessels and reduce inflammation. Multiple clinical trials pooled in meta-analyses have found that ginger supplements can lower systolic and diastolic blood pressure in adults in certain settings. The data are not uniform, result sizes vary by age group, baseline health and dose, but the pooled evidence shows a real effect in trials that lasted from several weeks up to a few months. In practical terms, several grams per day in studied regimens produced the most consistent blood pressure effects in adults under 50 in some analyses. Mechanically, ginger seems to act both as a direct relaxant on blood vessels and as a mild inhibitor of enzymes that otherwise tighten vessels. Some of those actions mimic the way common blood pressure drugs work, but at lower potency. Ginger also improves circulation through its effects on platelet behavior and inflammation, which helps explain why people report warmer hands and easier movement in cases where circulation felt sluggish. In communities where fresh ginger tea is a morning habit, clinicians have noted better tolerance to cold and fewer reports of numbness or tingling tied to poor circulation, though that's observational. In one meta-analysis summarising trials up to 2018 to 2019, measurable reductions in both systolic and diastolic pressure were reported in trial arms taking ginger compared with placebo. Where studies reported dose, the larger blood pressure falls were generally seen with higher supplemental doses. Another pooled review that included metabolic measures noted improved fasting glucose and lipid numbers in some study groups, which also indirectly benefits arterial health. Lower blood sugar and better lipids reduce inflammation inside artery walls and slow plaque growth. How to use ginger practically: fresh grated ginger in tea or smoothies, a teaspoon of ground ginger in a meal, or a standardized supplement if you want consistent intake. Many of the successful trials used concentrated doses that are hard to reach with food alone. So if you want a predictable effect, a tested supplement is worth considering. If you take anticoagulant drugs or have a planned procedure, talk to your clinician. Ginger can have mild antiplatelet effects and may interact with blood thinners. Pregnant women should follow medical guidance. At high doses, ginger can have effects that need supervision. Number 4, cayenne pepper, capsaicin. Cayenne and other hot peppers contain capsaicin, the molecule that makes food feel hot. Capsaicin interacts with TVRP1 receptors in the body. Those receptors are present on sensory nerves and in the lining of blood vessels. Activating them releases nitric oxide and other vasodilator substances locally that can increase blood flow in an area and improve oxygen delivery. Animal and human studies, including controlled lab tests, show that capsaicin can speed skin and muscle blood flow and may influence metabolic pathways tied to atherosclerosis. In cultures where hot peppers are eaten daily, parts of Mexico, India, and Southeast Asia, observational studies often show lower rates of some cardiovascular outcomes, though many confounding factors exist. Capsaicin's effects are partly immediate and partly chronic. Applied topically in trials, capsaicin creams increase local blood flow within minutes. When eaten, capsaicin raises circulation modestly and triggers small increases in metabolic rate. Over time, capsaicin appears to influence lipid metabolism and inflammatory markers. Pooled animal data and some human trials suggest beneficial shifts in cholesterol and inflammatory profiles when capsaicin or chili-rich diets are part of the long-term pattern. That points to a role in supporting arterial health, especially when capsaicin is part of a balanced diet that is otherwise heart healthy. Practical use: a pinch of cayenne in soups or stews, hot sauces, or a small shot of cayenne in a morning wellness drink. Work up to heat tolerance. If you have reflux, ulcers, or a sensitive stomach, test small amounts first. Topical capsaicin products raise local blood flow and are used in some physical therapy and dermatology settings. They are not the same as eating a hot pepper, but both routes show capsaicin's capacity to change circulation. If you take blood pressure medicine, note that a strong vasodilation effect could theoretically change medication needs. Monitor blood pressure and talk to your clinician before making major changes. Number 5, cinnamon. Cinnamon is a fragrant bark that people have used for food and medicine for thousands of years. When you taste it, you notice a warm sweetness and a slight bite. That flavor comes from compounds such as cinnamaldehyde, cinnamic acid, and a mix of polyphenols. Those compounds do several things in the body. They calm inflammatory signals, help cells handle sugar better, and nudge blood vessels to relax. Over weeks and months, those actions add up in ways doctors can measure on a blood test and with simple vascular exams. In trials and reviews, cinnamon supplements and extracts have been linked to better blood sugar control, lower triglycerides, small falls in blood pressure, and signals of improved endothelial, that is artery lining, so function. Put simply, cinnamon helps the part of the artery that tells it to open and shut. The lining of the artery, the endothelium, makes nitric oxide, the chemical that tells smooth muscle in the artery wall to relax. In lab work and animal studies, cinnamon components preserved nitric oxide levels and reduced oxidative damage to those lining cells. In human trials, researchers measured flow-mediated dilation and other standard vascular tests and found that people taking cinnamon did better than those on placebo after a few weeks. Those tests are not flashy, but they are exactly the checks clinicians use to say an artery is moving from stiff toward more flexible. In some clinical reports, the change in endothelial performance from cinnamon was comparable to changes seen with concrete lifestyle shifts, such as moderate exercise programs carried out for the same time. In pooled analyses and meta-reviews, cinnamon reduced diastolic blood pressure by amounts around 3 to 4 millimeters of mercury in trial groups compared with placebo in several randomized trials. Some studies found small drops in systolic pressure as well. Triglycerides fell in many trials. One meta-analysis reported an average triglyceride drop of about 6.9 milligrams per deciliter in trial arms using lower supplemental doses, while total cholesterol and LDL-C showed mixed but often favorable shifts depending on dose and trial design. For blood sugar, trials repeatedly show drops in fasting glucose in people with metabolic disease, sometimes in the range of 10 to 20 milligrams per deciliter depending on the starting level and the dose used in the study. Those are not instant changes. They show up after weeks and are stronger when cinnamon is part of a broader plan that includes diet and exercise. How cinnamon actually produces these numbers can be broken into a few linked actions. First, cinnamon improves how cells respond to insulin. Better insulin action means less glucose bouncing around in the bloodstream after a meal. Lower post-meal glucose reduces the chemical stress that damages the artery lining. Second, cinnamon's polyphenols act as antioxidants and lower inflammatory markers in the blood. Less inflammation means the cells that make nitric oxide can work more effectively. Third, specific molecules in cinnamon, especially cinnamaldehyde, have a direct relaxing effect on blood vessel muscle in lab studies. They open channels and improve nitric oxide signaling. Those three effects together explain why you see improved lipid numbers, modest blood pressure falls, and measurable boosts in vascular tests when cinnamon is taken regularly at appropriate doses. Dose and form matter a lot. Trials use powdered bark, standardized extracts, and different species of cinnamon, notably cassia and Ceylon, true cinnamon. Cassia, the common supermarket variety, contains higher amounts of coumarin, a compound that can harm the liver if you take large amounts every day. Ceylon has much less coumarin and is safer for daily high intake. Controlled trials testing vascular effects often used extract forms with known amounts of active compounds or capsules standardized to a cinnamon component. Doses in trials ranged from a few hundred milligrams up to several grams daily, with many positive results seen in the 500 milligrams to 3 grams per day range. If you want a predictable, testable effect, choose a standardized product or use Ceylon and stay within tested dosing ranges. Safety is one of the easiest parts to handle if you follow simple rules. For most adults, a ½ teaspoon to 1 teaspoon of powdered Ceylon cinnamon daily is safe and gives a useful intake of active compounds. If you plan to take more, especially cassia, consider a labelled supplement that states coumarin content or switch to Ceylon. People who take blood-thinning drugs, strong glucose-lowering medicines, or who have liver problems should check with their clinician before starting a concentrated cinnamon supplement. In clinical trials, adverse effects were usually mild. Stomach discomfort, small changes in taste, and serious side effects were rare when doses stayed within trial ranges. That said, if you are on medication for diabetes, note that cinnamon can enhance blood sugar control and may require a medication adjustment under medical supervision. What to expect and when to expect it. If you add cinnamon to meals daily or use a standardized supplement, measurable improvements typically show up after 4 to 12 weeks. Fasting glucose often moves first in people with higher starting levels. Lipids and triglycerides tend to shift over weeks to months. Changes in vascular function, the kind of tests clinicians use to measure artery lining performance, have been documented after 8 to 12 weeks in controlled settings. Those changes are subtle at first and build with consistent use and with other healthy behaviors. In short, cinnamon is not a single dramatic fix. It is a steady nudge that works best when paired with better food choices, activity, and sleep. If you found this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss tips that keep your arteries healthy. Drop a comment below with your favorite spice or what you're trying first. We'd love to hear from you.